My name is Dale Cougar Armstrong, and I will be your instructor today. The project that I'm going to teach you how to make is titled the Adjustable Friendship Ring. Now, a lot of other people have made this ring throughout the past several years. Really, the main design comes from someplace we cannot give credit to. However, I did learn my version from a friend of mine named Jane Mobley, who lives in Montgomery, Alabama, or at least she did. So thanks, Jane. And folks, let me teach you how to make this really lovely adjustable friendship ring. The supplies needed to make this adjustable friendship ring include the tools, which are your basic four, the angle cutters, flat nose pliers, chain nose pliers, and although I have the needle nose chain nose here, you can make this with your regular blunt nose chain nose pliers. And optional are the round nose pliers. I include these because you may already have them, and whereas you're just starting out, I don't want you to purchase anything you may not need in the future. I prefer to use my chain nose pliers for a couple of applications that you can substitute the round nose for. We're also going to need, obviously, a ruler, a fine point marker, and again, another option is the pin vise. This happens to be a sliding pin vise. I'm going to show you two different ways that you can twist wire small short pieces individually by hand. We're also going to need, because this is a ring project, a graduated stainless steel ring mandrel and a rawhide mallet. Now, the rawhide mallets come in a variety of sizes. I like the ones that have like a 1.5 to a 1.25 inch head. You really don't need anything much larger when you're working with the small pieces of wire jewelry we're going to be learning to make. The first step, of course, is to put on either a pair of safety glasses, glasses if you need them to see, because that's kind of an important skill, and either optovisors or magnifiers, besides being able to see what you're doing a little more easily because of the light reflecting off of the wire can sometimes play tricks on your eyes, but also to protect your eyes from possible little bits of wire pieces that might go flying through the air as you're learning to do this, or even if you're more experienced. We're going to make this ring today out of 21 gauge square half hard wire. You probably could use dead soft, but I prefer half hard because I like to be able to control it. To straighten this wire, I'm going to press slightly up and against the curve with my index finger, while I'm pressing slightly down on the top of the curve with my thumb. I'm just going to pull the wire through my hands in this manner and straighten the wire out. You may have to do this just a couple of times to get the wire as straight as you would like it to be. You can make this ring also using a 22 gauge square, and you can also use 5 pieces of wire. Today I'm going to use 4. So I'm going to use 4 pieces of wire. Each one will be 4 3/4 inch long. And once I have cut one piece, my desired length, all I need to do is use it to measure and cut the additional pieces I need. In this case, a total of 4. Now, the next 2 pieces of wire you need, I really prefer to only cut and use one. Although there are many uses for small scraps of wire, I prefer to keep my scraps as long as I possibly can for future use. So I'm simply going to take the remainder of this wire. By the way, I started out with a total of 2 feet. That's all. Okay, I'm just going to straighten part of this out and set it aside. Okay, I'm just looking at my 4 pieces of wire here, and I notice that these are not quite as straight as I would like them to be. So I'm going to spend just a little bit more time on a couple of them. And I've already prepared 2 pieces of my tape. The tape I'm using is about 1 inch long, and I folded a little tab under each end. So when I grab it, it will not stick to me. And what I've just done here is I've placed all of my wires next to one another lying side by side, so they're going to make a nice plank or wire bundle, which I'm going to hold together with my tape. And this is just a temporary binding. Of course, you do not want your tape to stick to itself. I'm going to tape on both ends. Okay, once I have my bundle taped, I'm going to use my marker to measure and mark the center of my bundle. Now I think my center is at 2 3/8, which I have marked. So I'm going to check the other end just to make sure. And 1, 2, 3. All right, we're there. Now, in order to know how to place the bindings on this ring, you have to get a general idea of what size you're making. And I can read off these numbers to you right now. Okay, so get a paper and pencil and write these down, or come back later and write them down again. Okay, if you are making a ring that fits a finger that is a size 4 to a 6, then you're going to want to mark 9/16 of an inch to each side of the center. Now, if the size is a 6 to an 8, the measurement will be 5/8 of an inch to each side of the center. A size 8 to a 10 is 11/16. And if you are making a ring that is size 10 to a 12, then the measurement will be 3/4 of an inch marked to each side of the center. So right now, let's say I'm going to make a size 6. Okay, so for a 6, I'm going to mark 5/8 of an inch on each side of my center. So I'm going to take my center mark of my bundle and place it on a whole number, in this case number 7, and I'm going to do 5/8 of an inch on each side, which would be 1/2 of an inch plus 2 small marks. Okay, now the piece of wire that we set aside is going to be used as my wrap wire, as I mentioned. And because I'm not sure how much wire I'm going to need, this is a great way to do it in case you do choose to use 5 wires or 6 wires in the future. I'm going to use my flat nose pliers to make a hook at the end of my wire. And I'm going to begin my wrap at one of the side of center marks and work from this mark toward the end, placing on 5 wraps to show, meaning that I will have 5 wraps showing on the front of my bundle. And when you cut your wire, I would like you to cut your wrap wire just below the edge of your wire bundle. Now here I've done that, and I have to go back to where I started, and let's take off that slight little burr because I do not want any blood when somebody tries on my ring. There we go. So again, starting my next wrap by making a small hook at the end of my wire. I'm going to begin these wraps at the other mark on the side of my center and work from it toward the open end, placing on 5 wraps to show. Okay, when you have completed all of your wraps, simply remove your tape. And I like to place mine, if I'm traveling, I like to place it right on my ruler so I can use it again. And if I'm home or working a class with a workbench, I'll just place my tape on the edge of my workbench. Okay, we could kind of subtitle this class Fun with a Pin Vise, because the next step is to take the 4 wires at one end, and I'm going to slightly fan them toward one side. Okay, so let's say that we're doing something that kind of looks like that. Okay, and on this side I'm going to use my pin vise to twist the wire. Oh, but wait a minute. I did tell you that I was going to show you another way to do this as well in case you don't have one of my favorite little tools. and that would be to use your flat nose pliers. I'm just going to get the end of this wire. Notice what position my hand is in because it's going to be going this way. And I do not believe in hurting your hand for the sake of the art. So putting my hand like this way and grabbing the end of my wire, I'm going to firmly hold onto my ring bundle at one of the sets of wraps, and I'm simply going to twist this wire using my pliers. Now, if you get into this and you like it and you go off and you do a show and you forgot your pin vise or your automatic wire twister, no, I would not recommend doing this on something that's like, 12 to 14 inches long, but it does okay on shorter pieces of wire. Okay, and now to use the pin vise, my favorite little tool, I'm going to slide the end nut down, insert the wire about 1/8 of an inch into the center of the pin vise and slide the nut up tightly, again supporting my bundle by holding onto the wraps, and then I'm going to just twist the pin vise in a clockwise motion. Okay, you cannot twist it in a counterclockwise motion because the top will unscrew from the base handle. And I know this may be difficult for some of my left-handed friends because you are used to working toward yourself, which would be a counterclockwise position. Sorry. I also count in my head quietly so I can get the same amount of twists on each segment of wire like I did here and here. Now this one I didn't because I was talking to you, but that's the way it goes. Okay. Now, on the opposite end, I'm going to repeat the same procedure, meaning I'm going to bend my wires all over in a fan position. And if you wish, you can twist these other wires as well. I'm not going to because I want to show you the difference between the twisted and the untwisted. The next step is we're going to learn to make, and we're going to make 4 of, what I like to call a rosette. A rosette is similar to what we call a spiral. However, a spiral is made with round wire, and when you have twisted square wire rolled upon itself, we call it a rosette. In order to do this, we have to cut some of our wires down, okay? So making sure that the outer farthest away is the shortest. Let's take this down. I probably should measure this for you. This is a favorite pattern of mine I've been doing for a long, long time. Okay, and that is 1 inch. So we're going to take the first wire down to 1 inch, and then I think I'm going to just decrease my increments by 1/16 to 1/8. So we have the second one, and then let's graduate down the third one. And our fourth one, we could almost leave the way it is. We're going to take it down just a hair. Okay. Now let me duplicate these moves over here, knowing that the first cut I made was at 1 inch. And then the rest are easy to eye. And that just got rid of that little section of wire that didn't get twisted using my flat nose. Okay, so we have a project that looks like this so far, almost like an Egyptian bird of some kind. And here's where you have the option. I am going to use my chain nose pliers because they have a flat surface on the inside, easy for gripping, and a round surface on the outside, so when I roll, my shape will be round. However, you may not have a tool such as this, and you may have round nose pliers, so you may use those instead. To make the rosette, I'm going to place the end of my tool, be it round or chain, at the very end of my wire. And let's do this on the twisted wire right now. And again, notice the positioning of my hand because I know which way I'm going to turn it. Okay, and I'm just going to roll the tool Now by doing that, I have made a nice tiny round circle. I'm going to do this on all 8 ends, 4 on each side. Okay, once all of my little circles are made, I'm going to use my flat nose pliers to roll each of these circles up upon itself. So I'm going to bring my wires back almost to regular position and start down here with the untwisted. And if you look at this again, thinking about a clock face, okay, I'm going to bring my flat nose pliers in at about 5 o'clock, which means I'm grabbing the bottom of this wire, coming in at 5 o'clock and rolling the wire onto itself, and repeating. Notice I'm not pulling the wire at all. I'm simply rolling the circle onto itself. We're going to roll till we have about 1/4 of an inch. Let's double check that for sure. Okay, there's 1/4 of an inch between my rosette and where the wrap is. I'm going to go on and start at my next loop and roll this one up so that it sits next to the first one. Now the third. And the fourth. Okay, let's repeat this procedure with the twisted wires on the other side. Again, let's check and make sure I've got 1/4 of an inch. I can go about 1/3 of a revolution. Here we go. And then bring the second, third, and fourth lined up right next to, alongside the first. Okay, this is our finished ring component. Now the next step is going to involve taking out any frustrations that you had with me while learning to make all of these little rosettes. I'm going to take our ring and the back of it, where hopefully your center mark is still visible, but if not, it's the side where your bindings are supposed to begin and end, all on the same side. That's the back. I'm going to take the back of this, I'm going to place it on my mandrel about 3 sizes smaller than, or 2 sizes smaller than our desired finish size. I believe I said we were making a 6 today. So let me take this down to about a 3. Of course, if you were making a size 3, you couldn't take it all the way down to 0. So no matter what size you're making, you really cannot take it any farther down than a size 1 or just below on this one. Okay, so taking the back of my ring bundle and placing it at the number 3. I'm going to hold that in place, and I'm going to press equally on each of these side wraps at the same time. Let me bring this around so you can see what I'm doing from the front. Okay, now as I do this, you're going to watch and see how this is going to press down. Kind of looks like wings now. Now I'm going to take this off because I know which way I have the most power in my hands. And so to duplicate that, I will turn this over and repeat that movement, pressing these next ones down. So I have in essence pressed all of them down. Now if I let this drop, okay, we see that I am at about a size 4. My desired finished size was a 6. So let's take the side wires, which I call my little wing wires here, and I'm going to use my flat nose pliers to put them exactly where I want them, meaning turning them so that they are lying on top of my mantle. Okay, now let's take this off, flip it over, replace it, and do the same thing with the other side. Okay, it's looking pretty already. Let's slide them together, bounce them around, and see that we are now at a size 5. So we've gained already one size. Next, I promised you time with the hammer. So get your mallet and, okay, we're going to beat on the side wraps as well as on our rosettes. Okay, remove it from the mandrel, turn it over, put it back on, and I'm going to do the other side now. First, the wraps, and now the rosettes. Okay, spin it around, and where are we? We are at a 5 3/4. We're almost at the 6. So let's just kind of bounce these together, which is going to work hard in my ring, keeping it where I want it to be. And when we let it drop, we're too big now. We're to 6 1/2. So let's take it back up, make it a little smaller again, and just work it down here. I'm going to give it one more good pounding. And we're at that 6. So let's take this off. A 6 should fit my small finger. There we go. Let's get this one out of the way. We have a very nice filigree adjustable friendship ring. This name was given to this by the lady who taught it to me, Jane Mobley from Montgomery, Alabama. Thanks, Jane. So have fun, folks. Enjoy making your own ring and think about the possibilities. You could alternate sterling silver and gold fill wire, each and every other one. You could make this with 5 wires instead of just 4. You could make the wires longer and add beads to the end. Try adding a little small 3mm bead to the end and roll it up within your rosette. So the possibilities, as with most of our designs, are endless. And while you're at it, if you really like this, I invite you to check out our collection of instructional DVDs right here at wiresculpture.com, where you're sure to find anything you could possibly want to do within the wire art jewelry field.